created Cube because I noticed that there's two main ways of sharing knowledge, and that is through writing, and then another way is just through simply talking. But we tend to undervalue the aspect of having a conversation due to certain restrictions like taboos and whatnot, and then that's really stopping great knowledge from being able to be shared with another person. So we're meeting to discuss Is America Crippled? And I think the best way to look at that is to go through the Donald Trump campaign, since it's built around the idea of making America great again. And so my question for you guys is, why do you think that the Donald Trump campaign has been successful thus far?
Anti-establishment. Absolutely anti-establishment message. As I was looking through stuff, what you find is that, and I've always thought this was kind of interesting, businessmen think that they make better politicians. Always thought that concept was really unique, strange and unique. But the idea is he has a message, he can command the media, and that message just keeps getting out there. And when you look through what his platforms are and what his message is, he's reminding that large portion of middle America, this is how we're going to make America great again. I think that's the largest portion of questions of how are we going to rebuild, how are we going to get back to it. But he's doing it from an anti-establishment perspective. And I think that's what people really eating up.
Yeah, I thought it was because there's like this growing strain of ignorance in the country that's being played off of, but I could be wrong, so if I am wrong, just tell me. Because I've noticed that in the media they really are pushing the idea that America is falling apart, but as a common citizen, I don't have much knowledge in that area. Does anybody have anything to add on to the idea of that there is a growing strain of ignorance that the media is playing on? And that.
Oh, sure.
I have a question then. If we think it's falling apart, what do we think is the main cause of falling apart? Is it unemployment? Is it toxicity to the environment? What are we doing? What are people perceiving as bad?
I think there's different perceptions. But I think the largest one, and even the Obama campaign touched on it, the infrastructure. The crippling, the crumbling of bridges, roads, schools, all those things that were built up in the early 1900s, starting to fall apart and starting to dam kind of the perception that we inside have, and then also on the outside looking in. But infrastructure is one of the biggest ones. And we keep talking about rebuilding and fixing the roads and taking care of that stuff. That's something that has yet to happen. And that's one of the biggest ones when I was looking over Trump, when I was looking at this book. Infrastructure is the biggest. It's the biggest. And I think both sides of the aisle could say that infrastructure is probably the biggest reason why there seems to be this crumbling or this crippling that you talk about.
So the infrastructure problems like the neglect of the road, is that due to funds that were meant for the road being allocated towards something like the war effort, or is it because we simply don't have enough manpower and money being generated, or is it because we're not using the technology that we're innovating to help?
I mean, people point to all of those and find a very good argument in there as to why the technology, the money, those who've gone to school. I think you can put all of them, even politicians, even money, war efforts, it's all in there. But I think you can't find one definitive answer as to why infrastructure is crumbling, why we haven't been able to fix it.
Is politics an answer?
It's always going to be. But I think that's what we feel is our comfort.
Do you have any alternative view besides politics that can be an answer?
It seems that politics is pretty stagnant and void of intelligent life sometimes, and that's pretty disconcerting, especially to somebody who is looking at a room full of congressmen and all of them are political, careers. That's all they do is politics. That's their career. It used to be that you held office because it was a duty. You saw that it was needed, and you performed that duty, and then you retired. And it doesn't look like that anymore. There's no scientists, there's no mathematicians, there's no architects. You have career politicians. That's degrading to the entire structure. That's fundamentally wrong. They can vote themselves bigger payments, and then that's fine. How is that acceptable? How are we letting that go on? I think that and the fact that they are solely focused on the use of technology for a war effort. If they even consider the new innovations in technology, it's because they are either in a corner or facing a sense of doom, or they are really pushing back riots because people want this to happen. If the government is that unresponsive, why are we continuing to let it be unresponsive? How do we make a change?
So I'm cautious to generalize and say all politicians, all congresspeople are individuals who lack some sort of educational substance, but they're just career politicians, because I think that'd be inaccurate. I think it is true to say that the trend of individuals staying in particular political positions for a longer period of time is happening and occurring. And perhaps that can be attributed to things like campaign finance reform, gerrymandering. But inside of that, with the gerrymandering or essentially safe electoral districts, it makes it to where it's much harder to hold our political figures accountable. If there's not the threat of losing their seat, and therefore they did have a far less obligation to the constituents, but more so a much more incentive to kind of align to the interests of perhaps a corporation, lobbyists, or special interests who had the ability to kind of contribute to campaigns that can keep their seats safe. And moving back towards the infrastructure comment, I think a crumbling infrastructure has been education, and specifically within that has been civic education. There's a book by the name of Fountain of Youth, Strategies and Tactics for Mobilizing Youth Voters. And it cites that within the American education system, civic education has been declining since about the 60s, late 60s. And so when we talk about an ignorant electorate or an uneducated electorate, I think less educated electorate is what we have. And the Donald Trump campaign and other campaigns have been massively successful in their ability to resonate amongst the lack of political knowledge, simply by saying how they feel, and then touching upon the sentiments, the fear, the anger, the frustration of a lot of voters.
So at its core, the problem is the education of the voters.
I wouldn't say at its core. I think that we're seeing a fracture within the American political system. Perhaps it could be argued that we've outgrown our current structure, because there seems to be a lot of frustration with the lack of the two-party system's ability to really encompass all citizens kind of within it. One thing that I'm interested to see is how perhaps a multi-party system within the U.S. context would work out, because it seems that we're really moving to the edges and the extremes of the parties, and even within that, no one is satisfied with where they're falling at.
It seems that the bipartisanship of what we're experiencing right now is like, yeah, there's these two people, they have really vastly different views on topics that have no value to how they actually run the country, and it doesn't really matter which one is voted. But if we have something like the French used to have, or they might still have, there's like 11 parties or something, it might work in a huge population like this. If you have diverse enough views across the board and you disperse the power, I think it might work.
Why there's such a polarization is because by the end of the 90s into the 2000s, it was a race to see who was more conservative, or who was more liberal. And we, on both sides, we pushed them. I can remember watching a specific show one morning and like, where are the moderates? And I yelled at the TV, I'm like, you pushed them out of your party. Like, you didn't want the moderates. You didn't want the people in your party that could come to the middle, that could compromise, right? Because compromise isn't something that we do anymore. We alone, the electorate, the politicians, the lobbyists, whomever, have allowed this huge gap to occur. And now we're both standing there. It's kind of like that tug of war, like, all right, who's going to pull harder to get some people back to the middle? It hasn't happened. My student here will tell you that I ask you guys lots of times, do you know, as a voter, you have the right to change the direction in which things are going, the way the country's going? And they look at me, and I said, it's right here. We have the power to change it. But I don't know that we're ever told that. We're never explained that here's why you vote. You don't have to vote for the whole ticket. You're allowed to vote how you want to. You can do what you want when you go in there and you grab that ballot. But I don't think people feel that their voice is enough. And so they're always looking for more than just a simple answer. The simple answer is to vote, get involved. You don't have to do big things. But with something like Citizens United, with all this money out there, it has now become apparent that my small donation means nothing. It does mean something, but we've come to be told and believe that because we're not a multi-million-dollar corporation giving to a candidate, we don't have any stake in this game. And that's a large problem too. So, but people need to know, us need to know, we have the tools and the way to change the trajectory. Are we going to do it? I think another sorry.
When you did ask us about that in class, people still like believe. If I asked them like, "Are you gonna vote?" Like, no, our vote doesn't mean anything. So you could tell like, I asked a lot of people. So you just tell like, no, it doesn't really mean anything. And I would tell them like, but you would tell us in class. And I'll think about it, but most people still wouldn't go out and vote. So.
Right. Exactly. I think the other thing with this Donald Trump, we got the candidate we asked for. Because we're all like this. Oh my gosh, what's happening on Twitter? What's happening on Facebook? What are the Kardashians doing? Why are they even relevant? Why is this? Why in a fractured society, a crippled America, are we looking more to reality television and all of them? Why is that our fixation? So what has happened? We're over here looking at this. Here comes politics around the back doing what they want. I think I used the Lord of the Rings analogy in class too. They're all watching the eye. They don't know what's going on around them. It's kind of where we're at. We need to break away from this, break away from what reality garbage is doing on TV, and really pay attention. We've told government, we've told everybody, we don't care, we're busy worrying about this. So here comes a reality star candidate against a career politician. This is what we asked for. So for us to be angry that Donald Trump is anti-establishment and making his message, we can't be angry at that. That's what we asked for. So I think there's a lot of components there, but I think those are some of the things to look at.
Yeah, and touching on well, speaking of the electoral system,
Yes.
Do you know why it is that we're still using a system? Isn't the system 40 years old? Like how we vote? Like how come we're voting on it?
You mean the electoral college?
Yeah.
Or you're just talking about voting in general?
Yeah, just voting in general.
Because it's not reliable.
So that's how they say it.
Wait, that's why they use it?
The voting, the way we use voting systems now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about voting systems?
Just the machine you vote on.
Oh.
Like, how come it has been set up to just vote on my phone?
Because it took 200 years to get an electronic computer to go vote to, so it's going to be another 100 years before they'll consider a phone.
And I can hack that and put an infinite amount of votes for another person. So it's
Because you can't control how many times
Yeah.
somebody can vote. You know, American Idol, there's millions of votes, but you can call 75 times for one person. There's no controlled voting. It's not like a one person, one vote system. And so there's no sure way to control that.
Although that is a good question. I often wonder. I'm not a technology expert, but they have ATMs all over the world where I can have access to the entire financial system, but I can't hack in and steal your money. So why can't they create a voting machine that allows me to vote, right? It seems like it should be, the technology should be doable. But, so my answer to the question would be, separate from the technology question, which I can't answer. We have to remember that elites on both sides of the aisle have, both of them have an interest in fewer people voting. I mean, Democrats have an interest in certain kinds of people who tend not to vote more. But they also are afraid, they're not, for instance, they're not willing to say no voter registration at all. They just open it up to everybody. And Republicans are even more afraid of who might vote if you increase voter registration. So they both have incentives to not go there, not to invest in making it easier to vote. Like, why do you register to vote? Why do you even have to register to vote?
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't make sense.
No. Why can't
we all vote by email? Why can't we all vote, by mail a week ahead of time? It should be really easy. But the leaders on both sides have strong incentives to stronger on one party than the other, but Democrats also have an incentive to be very careful about expanding the electorate.
And something that you're talking about, Dr. Lyons, and something I brought up, and I've read actually in a couple different books, we need these different demographics in society to keep us moving forward. We need the ghettos. We need the poor people. We need the people that are working hard. Like, the way government has worked, government has created the very pockets of society that exist, which is why we have some of the struggles we do. You look at Donald Trump's demographic, it's the Tea Party folks. That's the reality. Where did the Tea Party go to? Donald Trump's got their message, and that's where they're at. The middle class keeps growing, the top 1%. We still have poverty, but we'll never get rid of it because there is this dependence on each of these classes in society. That's the sad part. That is the sad part, is that we become dependent on having these different structures. Can you fix what's there? Absolutely. Does he have the answers? I don't know. But when you read this, and this is why I was, how do I take this approach now that I've kind of looked at a little bit of this? But he's talking about a message of patriotism, of nationalism, that, and this is my opinion, that has been lost on a country for quite some time. He's hitting the heartstrings. He's saying, look, why do you, the middle class, bust your hump when immigrants are coming in and taking your job for less money? Well, how did we let that happen, right? Well, it happened, and here we are. And so he's reminding us, hey, politicians did this to you. Now it's time to let somebody come who's not a politician. Let's build that wall. Let's enforce those laws. Let's do what we need to do to become a nation again. And that's his message. And for the naysayers, and I admit I'm a naysayer, that's not a hard message to get behind. Making America great again. Making us a nation. Okay, it's absurd to say that somebody else is going to pay for that wall. And maybe we don't need the physical border, but maybe we need a sense of a border that is what's called nationalism. Being a strong patriot country again. Because we lost that. I mean, it's lost. It's not gone. We can get it back. And I think that's what he's trying to say with his policies and his book. Start with the infrastructure. Why can't we be great again? Like, I can't argue with that. I don't care, or some of the other stuff, but I can't argue with that. I don't think any of us here would argue with that.
Since I'm used to I'm a citizen, I want some cultural knowledge, so I compare my current situations with how I was in the past. Are we really that far gone?
We've regressed. We have affordably regressed. Now, Dr. Lyons, you may want to step in and get more on my head, but I feel like we've regressed. I feel like some of the strides we've made to move forward, we're starting to have backgrounds again.
Yeah, there's if you look at the data, the U.S. is among the worst in infant mortality. We pay more per capita for healthcare to get the worst healthcare than any other industrialized country. Our educational system used to be the envy of the world, and now we rank in near the bottom of the top 100. And on all kinds of measures, we're not doing well as a nation. And then if you break it down into subgroups in the nation, it looks even worse. Average worker in America, and again, this is aggregate, but average wages peaked in about 1979. Now, worker productivity has continued to go up. So if we're sharing the profits produced by that productivity, then wages should be going up. But average wages for workers isn't even back to the 1979 levels. Well, the top 1% are scooping up massive amounts more than they used to. So there's a bigger inequality gap. In addition to the crumbling infrastructure, which I would agree with Brandon, a big part of that is an intentionally crumbling educational system, right? It's been defunded, right? These are choices that were made to defund, to solve every problem by lowering taxes. But when you lower taxes, you have fewer cops, and you have more schools, and you have more potholes. There are consequences to making that the only platform on your agenda. So yeah, things are not as good as they have been in the past.
And to piggyback off that, maybe ask a question. I'm sorry.
It was just directly related to his comments about how work productivity has increased, and it's actually kind of a reverse model of the innovation line of technology, and how right now we're able to use technology, and in 15 minutes you can get the same amount of work that would normally take an entire work day in 1960.
Yes.
So our productivity, of course, it's rising, but we're looking at how much you get paid the complete wrong way. We're saying you work this amount of hours. Well, that's changing. The innovation of technology is exponential, which means it will rise continuously to a point where it replaces the entire working population very quickly. It's going to happen within the next 40 to 50 years. I'm going to have to deal with it. So what are we doing? Why are we even valuing these different ways of work and saying that we're crumbling? But in reality, it's just the rise of technology and the replacement of the human workforce. Isn't that progress? That's progress, moving from a primary society of human labor to a primary society of technology labor. Shouldn't we just find better things to do?
But that's a question that your generation will ask.
Right.
Who's running the government? Is the baby boomers?
Yeah.
They're not, and I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm kind of fall on some of this technology. But you're trying to get, it's kind of like the wheel. You're trying to get them to go from like that Fred Flintstone wheel to a rubber tiger. It's a very hard sell because to them, they're very set in their ways. And it's a generational thing. Your sell on that to a Gen X person is a little easier because we understand. I didn't grow up. I laugh when I use technology in the classroom. These two will tell you I'm horrible at it. It shouldn't take me that long to figure out how to switch from YouTube to a slideshow. Because in high school, when the big projector cart showed up, you feed the reel, you're looking at trying to get them to see something in a new way. They can't even get through a day about agreeing on something that needs to get done, so trying to show them new ways to do something, it's not that easy, I think. I think you have it's a generational thing. I don't want to say that completely, because there's a lot of them that understand that. They have staffers that are your age. Why are they catching on? I think it's a large generation, and the older you get, the less you want to change, because it's a security thing. It's a security thing.
This is where the Donald Trump story gets complicated too.
Yes.
I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, but even those who are not supporters have to admit that there is some real anger out there. It's not just ignorance. I think that he's also tapping into some ignorance for sure.
Yeah.
But there's some real anger out there. So people who really feel like the world is changing in ways that they don't support and they don't think is a good idea, and it's hurting them and their families and their communities, and that anger finds its way to Donald Trump. So he's a more complicated phenomenon than either those who love him or those who hate him like to portray him as.
I think for sure that they say that he's a bad businessman. I think he's actually a great businessman. The way he's utilizing the media to like proliferate him and basically, or just give him free publicity basically. And,
well, if you look at Donald Trump throughout his career, he's always been a master of media. He's always been someone who will take an interview with anyone and utilize it as a platform to push some type of message. And when you look at his messages, it's very easy to say, like, how can someone be that stupid? but he knows what he's doing. And I think we oftentimes don't recognize just how brilliant Donald Trump actually is, because he has an agenda. I think Ben Carson was quoted in saying, there's two Donald Trumps. There's the Donald Trump who will say anything that he wants on the air, and there's a Donald Trump who will sit inside of a meeting and analyze every decision quietly and kind of articulate a response. So I think this whole notion that Donald Trump is kind of just like a fool, a clown, is completely wrong. If anything, he's seizing the political landscape that we've created and taking advantage of it in ways that happens to just be completely challenging status quo. And to an extent, I almost appreciate what he's doing to the two-party system, because it's forcing us to really look internally. Those of us who will actually accept the challenge and really think, where do we go from here? What does this really say about America?
Here's 2 points that I found when I was reading over this. There's like 5 points he talked about in his book. And the last one, it says, Trump explains the outrage. Trump has explained in his past books, sometimes he bends the truth a bit and dives headfirst into hyperbole. It's all part of his shtick. He's blunt about the fact that he uses the media to his advantage. He says he learned a long time ago that if you're not afraid to be outspoken, the media will write about you or beg you to come to their shows. And he says, I'm a businessman with a brand to sell. When was the last time you saw a sign hanging outside a pizzeria claiming the 4th best pizza in the world? But he knows it. And I think this is what angers everybody else, is that he's aware of his faults. He knows. He knows what he's doing. So you can call him on it. And he said, he made a comment about his hair. He goes, it's mine. He goes, but that's my vulnerable spot. And so those who attack me, that's where they go. But he's aware of his faults. What makes somebody more angry than if you know you're going after someone that you can't rattle in a cage? You can't rattle them. And
Eats it up.
you,
Honestly.
you can't.
He's like a PR expert.
He is. And so
That's an important distinction, actually, because I think you have to be careful with calling him brilliant.
correct.
Because his policy positions are quite literally stupid.
Yeah.
They're not even serious.
No.
However, he is a brilliant manager of his brand, right? PR expert, salesman, whatever you want to call it. A snake oil salesman that comes into town and sells all his snake oil is brilliant, even though everybody got sick. Right? It didn't do anything for you.
And I think
So
that's
it's
why
different from being brilliant in the way we normally mean with a politician, like able to solve problems.
And I think that's why in his policy you see something like a nation without borders is not a nation. Like he throws in that sprinkling of nationalism because there's nothing else there. Because if you read further down, yeah, you're right. It's not chunky. There's not a lot in there. But they put those words of nationalism, those rally the troops kind of words, so that's what sticks out. The rest is kind of like words. Ooh, strong nation. And yeah, I think saying he's brilliant is too much.
Nostalgia sells. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, that's okay. Speaking on Donald Trump, I noticed when he his first part of the campaign, which we went over in our class there, one thing one of the students brought up was how he uses what he's done to let everyone else know that this is where you can be, because we're going to make America great. He used eminent domain. He talked about it. Now, we know it's wrong, but he knows that you can get away with it. So you have people out there that's following Donald Trump that's looking for the silver lining or that rainbow, and they happen to be made a wrong line of whether I'm going to be over here or I'm going to be over here. So I think people are still following Donald Trump, hoping that he'll say something that gets them back up on their feet, and he's not going to do that. He's not going to tell you everything Donald Trump knows how to do. But he has successfully divided our country. And that's from the rich standpoint all the way down to me.
He had some help though, because on the other side he had Bernie Sanders
Bernie Sanders, yeah.
helping driving that point home on the other side. You know, it's very interesting, and I know Sanders is in the point of this conversation here. But you look at it, what's the difference? I'm sorry. But what's the difference, right? Trump's over here, Bernie's over there. They're preaching the same message, but just to their groups and showing the establishment is not doing anything for you. There's a problem. This is broke. And they're both, I mean, the difference is that Sanders has been in government. He probably comes from a little more sensible place and a little more brilliance about what he's talking about because he's been a senator. And they both are doing the same message, however you choose. But again, as we've talked about, your perception is your reality, and what hits you at home may not hit you there. And so they both are appealing to a group, to a demographic, and they both shape up the two-party system hands down.
And both populists, populists on the left and populists on the right. Very different policy perspectives, different level of intelligence on policy, but both populists for sure.
What I was surprised with is that I guess this proved how strong the Trump brand is in 2010 for these major arguments statements towards immigrants, towards women. Yeah, he still has a really strong follow. He even said himself, that he would probably shoot somebody and he still vote for him for the most part.
Not so much. No, I'm a woman and I would want to shoot somebody, so he's got two strikes here. Yeah, and that.
Speech where he said 7-11 instead of 9-11.
Right.
How about 2 Corinthians? That's my favorite. That is my absolute favorite. But somebody helped kind of smooth that flow over, like, you know, he's reading a teleprompter, and they probably didn't put it in 2 Corinthians, so he saw 2. But, you know, he does it at Liberty University in front of a room full of Christians. So you could tell he was so out of his element. And he's like, can you see that, people here? And, like, he's trying to make jokes, and there's just, like, one small travesty after another. And 2 Corinthians just sold it for me. So,
he's a great entertainer, and that's what a lot of people want to see, the famous Donald Trump. And like you say, he's a salesman, and he's good at what he does. We have to give him that, because that's all Donald Trump, all I have known Donald Trump was for.
Yeah, he's in the business world.
Yeah.
Not his salesman as a politician.
Right.
In the business world, he's a multiple failed businessman.
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
His business success, his model for business success is inherit $100 million.
There you go.
Well,
Which he
sign me
said
up.
was-
I could be a successful businessman. I could inherit $100 million.
Which was loaned to him. He keeps
By
saying it
a
was
small
loaned.
loan.
Right.
A small
loan from his
I don't know
father.
about you
But
guys.
the Wall Street Journal did an analysis where they said that they compared if he had taken his inheritance and put it into a standard Vanguard IRA that you or I would use for retirement,
Right.
he would have several $1 billion more. It's unclear how much money he actually has now, so they had to base it on estimates. But he would have several $1 billion more now, just based on the market, than based on his so-called business savvy with whatever the inheritance was. There's also a dispute about how big the inheritance is.
I looked that up and I couldn't get a solid answer because I wanted to know after he mentioned about his inheritance and his dad and his family, and I cannot find anything on stating exactly what his dad did for him.
He claims he got a $1 million lump.
$1 million loan.
Yes.
But
It's still questionable.
better sources, the low end is $40 million inheritance, and I've seen $100 million inheritance.
That we know of in the United States.
Yeah, but it's hard. This is private money, so we don't have the right to know this.
Right.
So it's hard to know.
I think something else to think about, he's kind of a celebrity, reality celebrity. Ronald Reagan was a celebrity. I think we put stock sometimes in the wrong people, and we give celebrity status to the wrong folks. We shouldn't be emulating politicians and celebrities. We should be emulating people in our own communities. Not to say that celebrities or politicians don't do great things. I've always been a firm believer. State and local politicians get work done, right? I mean, and that's the way the government has been set up. But I think we put a lot of stock in our elected officials, and we forget that they make mistakes, and they're only human. Everybody goes to that calling for some reason. We talked about this. You know, I would imagine back in the day, Hillary Clinton had her calling because of the women's movement. Well, now there's a lot of baggage that comes with her because through that movement she got caught up in other stuff. And I think we forget they're humans too.
Right.
And I think nobody realizes what Washington is until they get there. And it's just a beast that until you're immersed in it, I don't think any of us can understand. But that doesn't mean the politicians should quit working for us because we've hired them. And they forgot that we've hired them and we could fire them. And with that said, I can't help but keep thinking that Donald Trump feels that the congressmen are in his boardroom and that he can just fire them. And that's something that he can't take with him. He is elected president. He's not the one who decides if we stay or go. That's us. And I don't know if that tone is out there, but it's something to keep in mind that you can't heckle Cruz and Rubio out of a race. You can, because he did, but you can't do that to the people that we've elected. It's a different beast, and I don't know that he's prepared for that beast.
I'd like to come back to the education point, because one thing Brandon was saying, I don't want to speak for you, but that was about, it sounded like it was about the regular education system, K through 12, college. But there's what we learn in other ways too, right? You know, the mass media is a powerful educational tool. President Obama is educator-in-chief, right? You know, we learn by observing the world we live in, not just by being in classes. And so if you think back to what created the possibility of Trump emerging, you have more than a decade of Fox News spreading absolute misinformation to persuade people that the government is always the problem, cutting taxes is always the answer. So that makes Donald Trump make sense to people, right? Yes. That suddenly is a good idea, right? You got Mitch McConnell for the past 8 years said from the beginning, my job is to make sure American government doesn't solve any problems. And make sure this president can't do anything.
Yeah, it was 4 hours after he was elected.
Yeah. So the gridlock we see isn't accidental. And the anger people have about government not being able to do anything isn't accidental.
No.
And Donald Trump benefits from that because people are angry about the government. You know, the Tea Party is a big supporter of Donald Trump. Well, the Republican Party went and got in bed with the Tea Party several years ago because they want their votes, and now they've lost control of that partner. And so, had they not gotten in bed with the Tea Party early on, they would have faded away because most of them, not all of them, some of them were just misguided patriots, but most of them are kind of loony, right? So they would not be prominent now had they not had a prominent party boost them up.
Right.
So there's lots of things we can look at that explain Donald Trump, right? Explain why the soil was fertile and prepared for a Trump candidacy.
Absolutely, and that was the one thing that I've talked with, just in casual conversations with people on both sides of the aisle. Never in my life have I ever seen the tolerance for such ill talk about our commander-in-chief. I was not a Bush supporter, but he was our president.
Right.
And I may not agree with everything, but you didn't disrespect him. And the disrespect and the discourse that has come about is because 4 hours after that man was elected, you had McConnell, Rowe, Rush Limbaugh, the talking heads of Fox News saying he's going to be a one-term president. Well, you turned around and you stuffed it right back down their throats and said, hey, you know what, I don't have to worry about re-election, and I'm set after I'm done. That, I think, angered them, and that's why I think they came back even stronger. Is that they don't want to work, they don't want to confirm somebody. I don't care what Biden said 20 years ago. This is a different time.
That's true.
This is a different time than when Biden made that comment. Nobody, you say something then, you don't think it's going to come back. But the point is, Obama just stuck it to him one more time, and he has the highest approval rating of any president in their second term. What's that say?
Yeah.
What's his approval rating?
I don't know.
It's pretty low, 52, 53. But for presidents at this point in their second term, it's higher than others.
Because I think at this point with Bush in 2008, you were in the 30s.
He was in the 30s.
Yes.
So, I'm getting this right. The entire political climate is an absolute mess.
It's a hotbed of
And
something's going to
we
happen.
can't clean it up because there's large corporations that profit off of it, people that have jobs in it, people that have arms in it and won't move because they have the guns. And a whole internet of people that are stirring things up, because we've never had this technology before, and it's only going to get better. So, any ideas on where we're going? Because that's kind of scary for me.
Well, I think once media was able to report what they felt they could report, if you remember Watergate, we just talked about this, Pentagon Papers, once that was allowed to be done, we gave media a whole new power. We created that beast by that legislation for that Supreme Court ruling. However, once Watergate emerges, now all of a sudden we distrust government, we believe everything we need to do this. Right?
There's some reason for optimism, though.
Yes.
The American political system is still competitive.
Yes.
Right? Even though corporations are really powerful and Citizens United made them even more powerful, they don't all agree with each other.
That's true.
Right? Some of them invest in Republicans, some invest in Democrats, and some invest in both.
Right.
Right? So we still have Madison's ambition checking ambition that we have to rely on. It's just perhaps not working as well as it could. So it's not that it's fallen apart, but we need to. Your generation, the charge is you got to figure it out, right? Understand how politics is working. Where is the dysfunction? And do you want to try to get some kind of proportional representation so you can get a third or fourth party? Right? And that would be a viable option. You want to have publicly funded elections so you can get take money out of campaigns. You want to just overturn citizens. There's lots of things that you could do. Stop gerrymandering. You probably need to do all those things. And there's probably other things we're not thinking of. But the first challenge is, don't be too pessimistic.
Right.
The system is still. I don't want to sound too jingoistic, but still, I think the best political system in the world, and it's still competitive, right?
Yeah.
And so you can still, if you don't like what Democrats are doing, there are plenty of people you can work with who are powerful and have resources to work against them. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like what the Republicans are doing, there's plenty of people you can work with that have resources on the other side to work against them.
And that is the beauty of our system. If our founding fathers, remember I said if we could have a seance and call them back, who would we call? It'd be a fun activity, but I don't know that they would think that would still be here. I think that they would be like, wow, we gave you a republic, if you can keep it.
Yeah.
I think they'd be really impressed that we're still working with a structure that was created back then. And this was a time when the country was just 13 states, and they didn't know about westward expansion, and nobody probably knew the internet was coming around. But if they could see that what they gave us is still here, that's the optimism right there. That's the optimism. But that's why also we need to think about the fact that they were forward thinking enough to understand that things shape and mold and move. And that Constitution and what government does has to move with it. And I think because we've moved apart, how do we bring it back together so it can shift together again and work? But I think it would be pretty impressed if we saw that we still managed to hang on to something. Because Italy is an example of what happens with representation when it goes wrong. India has how many parties? So, not that representation is a bad idea, but if done correctly, like Canada and like Parliament in Britain, it's effective. Yeah.
It's important not to think silver bullet, right? Multiple parties isn't going to solve all problems.
Right.
But maybe it would improve the situation.
I think this will start to help solve problems.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that this will help to bring the cases together? We can talk about that problem.
I think what needs to happen is we realize that we can come to the table because not all of us come from the same political thought process. We come from similar parties. But the fact that we just sat here for an hour and debated and kind of conversed, we're all friends when we leave this room.
Right.
My feelings aren't hurt. You know what I'm saying?
We all want the Cavs to win tonight.
Yes, we do. Especially my children. But, P.G. Sittenfeld said it back in December. He came to talk to the press club and he said, Washington and the talking heads have told us that compromises are ad-libbing, but he said compromises in procedures are very good. It's not. It's not. It's an amazing thing, and I think that's where we need to get back to. And I think the other problem, lobbying, I think that's where Washington gets lost. So,
One final thing, just so you guys know, I really want this to grow outside of myself, and I want people to start hosting their own cubes by using the format I provided. And so if anybody has any ideas for the Cube or they want to host one, I'll be more than happy to help you guys out and make that possible. But you guys have any critiques, anything to add on that you think would be more beneficial for the Cube, something like that?
Excellent experience.
Right. Women in politics.
Okay.
In the fall, maybe, while the campaign season.
Alright, well, thank you guys for coming out to the Cube.
Definitely.